Hi, friends. I'm Emily Lay, and you're listening to the Simplified podcast. If you're looking for a quiet place where you can filter out the noise and the hustle, this is it. Every week, I invite you to slow down and join me to explore practical ways to organize and automate the complicated parts of life so you can focus on what truly matters most. The older I get, the more I realize that life isn't just made of black and white moments. It isn't just made of days we can label as winning or losing. Our days are full of more nuance than that. If we're honest, most of the time, it feels like you're just hovering right there in the middle. If someone asks you how your day is, you're probably going to say, good. Or if it's less than ideal, you might say, fine. Side note, any significant other who has heard a woman say, it's fine, knows it's anything but fine, but that's a story for another day. Good, fine, no news is good news. That's where we usually are. But not every day is like that. There are some days, some seasons even, that ask you to give more than you think you have. When something new is added onto your plate, like a teething baby, or a kid who's having a hard time at school, or a partner who's lost their job, or a parent whose health is failing, the idea of thriving can feel like a joke. Some days just don't end happily. Some days end with ranting to your partner, or hours of the office at night, or reaching for the bag of chips, uncorking a bottle of wine, clicking add to cart, whatever you need to do to just get by. We all have our days. We all have the ways we cope. I totally get it. I think the problem comes in when you realize that the just getting by days are more of the norm than the exception. Sometimes it's hard to recognize you're in a just getting by phase in the moment. One day you look up and you ask yourself, when did I become this person? You might think to yourself, and it may sound trivial, but it's true for me, when's the last time I put on some lipstick? When's the last time I dressed up and went out? For someone else, it could be, when's the last time I laughed until I cried? When's the last time I didn't worry about money or the kids or my parents or whatever else is on your mind to take care of? Sometimes we're going to be in that just getting by season when life asks so much of us. But in those moments when we feel like we've lost the joyful little girl we once were long time ago, or the young woman with the big dreams we were not so long ago, it can feel impossible to find her again. It feels like maybe this is always how it's going to be, like you're somewhere in the middle where you can't really complain about not having enough because you have so much already, but also feeling like this isn't the life you want exactly. And you're not sure what you want, but it surely isn't this. Because at this stage in your life, you thought you'd feel better than this. If you're looking to get out of a just getting by season, then listen up. Because my next guest has found herself in that season before more than once. And today, she helps thousands of women find their way out of it and back onto a path toward their most true selves. If you don't know Mallory Ervin, then get ready because you are going to love her. I have followed Mallory for a long time, and she is one of my favorite people. She is so funny, so authentic, so real. I just can't say enough good. I really, really enjoyed our conversation. All right, I could go on and on and on, but let me just tell you a little bit about who she is. Mallory Ervin is a small-town Kentucky girl who calls Nashville home. From her time in the Miss America pageant to being a 3-time contestant on The Amazing Race, Mallory has turned her passion for sharing her love of fashion, beauty, and life into a platform for impact. Today, she runs a global lifestyle brand she founded in 2016 and hosts the Living Fully podcast, where she inspires her audience to seek joy and live fully. Mallory has just released a brand new book called Living Fully, and let me tell you, it is unforgettable. It grabs you from the very first page, and when you pick up your copy, you will see what I mean. She pulls back the curtain on her life and shares some really vulnerable moments and how she got through some of the hardest days of her life. Just wait until you hear her journey. It's really incredible. I loved this conversation today, and I know that you will too. So with that, here is my conversation with Mallory Ervin. We have 9 women on Team Simplified, and they all
Amazing.
love you so much. So they've all been texting
Oh,
me, and they're like, "Today's the day. We can't wait to hear."
so sweet. That is so
Oh,
amazing to hear. I'm a big fan of Simplified,
thank
and we were
you.
just talking about this off podcast, but Emily and I kind of work with the same like nutrition person, kind of. So we
Mhm.
have that connection. But also, like, I randomly started following the Simplified the challenge
Yep.
because I saw someone repost something, and I think it was the fridge clean out thing, and I saw them
Right.
repost that day, and I was like, first off, this graphic is gorgeous and beautiful, and it makes me just want to clean out my whole life.
Same.
And then I went to your page, and it was so simple and but doable, and
Yeah.
I felt so just good about everything after I did the tasks, and
I
I just
love
love
it.
that challenge and everything that y'all do at Simplified.
Thank you. It is so fun. And I get to work with the most amazing people. And we started this podcast a year ago, and it has just been so fun getting to like meet and talk to so many different people. So thanks for doing this. And you are
Oh,
in the
thank
thick
you.
of book release right now.
Oh, we are.
And I'm
We
so
are.
excited. So I'm so excited to read your book, but I
Thank
just
you.
read your article in the Tennessean, and
Thank
it's
you.
phenomenal. It's
Thank you. That one went a little deeper than I thought that they were going to go. So that was,
yeah,
news is different. Podcasts, they want the light and
right.
bright side. A lot of people want the side that they already see.
Yeah.
And the reason that I kind of decided to write this book was this big thing, that I went through 8 years ago that, you read about the
Yeah.
nitty gritty and the Tennessean. So, for so many years, I showed up in the space and it was this bright and positive lifestyle
Yeah.
content. And I kept getting people being like, I wish I could have a life like yours, or I wish I could wake up and feel happy. And how do you do this? Or how do you have this relationship? And I thought, I've got to tell them the other side of the story.
Mm.
If I really want to influence people, I cannot hold this part of the story behind the curtain
Right.
any longer. So it took me 8 years to write this part of my story.
It's
And I'm so
remarkable.
thankful I did. But I mean, right before it comes out, you just get a little bit like, oh no,
I always say after one of my books comes out that I have a vulnerability hangover
I
afterward.
think I have one of those. You
Right?
can't stop the freight train.
Can't
You know,
stop the
you
freight train. And especially, I mean, you see so many people who share the highlights of life and the happy parts
yeah.
only. And I'm so inspired, and I just admire you so much for like going there and sharing the real,
Thanks.
because we all go through real stuff, but sometimes you just feel like you're alone in it, you know?
You do. And I did when I went through it. I remember thinking to myself, like, none of these women have walked off this Miss America stage and into a treatment center, or certainly not people like me, I felt at the time. I
Yeah.
had always been an achiever and someone that set such an example. I grew up on this farm, 23 first cousins. I'm the oldest. I am
23
born.
first cousins. That is
Yes, it was
remarkable.
like a compound, Emily, like a true compound without the cult like things.
Right.
And it was, I was born an achiever and a leader. And when you're the oldest of all your siblings, which I was too, I was the oldest of four, but I
Mhm.
grew up with, it was like 23 younger siblings. We saw each other
Wow.
every single day. So I think ingrained in me always was this want and need and love of setting an example and achieving and being the good girl and the shining star.
Amen.
And I think this is a lot of people's journeys and stories.
Mhm.
And achievement was not crippling to me until in my early 20s when I was runner up in Miss America. And then I did the Amazing Race and then another Amazing Race, all within 1 year.
Wow.
And I constantly kept feeling like I needed to top things and top
Yeah.
things. And it
What's
was a
next? What's next?
terrible spiral for me that led me to the place that was the catalyst for me to living fully. And that was when I entered treatment 8 years ago. But
Wow.
it was the best thing that ever happened to me because I lived a really good life before I went through all this.
Right.
But it wasn't until like when I reached the rock bottom and the low, that was when my whole life was like reborn. So I was like, if
Wow.
I'm not sharing this part of it, they don't understand how I arrived to the other side. Everybody says I've been through dark, hard times, but sometimes you have to get specific. And it
Right.
took me a long time to do that, but I'm glad that I finally did.
I'm
So,
so glad. I'm so glad that you did. And I think there's something, I mean, I look back at my own life, and there are things that I've gone through that just I wouldn't be who I was without it, you know? And I mean,
mhm.
you think like, would I go back and change it? I don't think I would, because I really feel like you have to be broken down to be built back up, you know?
You absolutely do.
As painful as it is. Well, so your vulnerability, like I said, is just so incredible in this book, and I love how you started the book in a place where many of us have felt very vulnerable ourselves, which is sitting in
Mhm.
the salon chair, right? Looking
Yes.
in the mirror. So, talk to me about why you decided to start the book right there and what did that particular moment hold? Why did it hold so much meaning for you?
So when I went to treatment, I came off of this 10-year stint of I'd done Miss Kentucky 3 times, I'd done Miss America, I'd done TV
Mm,
for years and years. And it always mattered what I looked like on the outside. I was never known for the way that I looked. I never did pageants. I did Miss America, but that was, that was it basically. Um, but when you become a title holder like that, people certainly do start to look at you in a different way, in a different light. You literally walk into a room with a crown on your head and a banner across you. Like the way that you look and the appearance of things
mm-hmm.
start to really get cemented together with your identity.
Yeah.
So, um, this story is a story that I hadn't shared, but it was very important because, okay, I went to treatment, sobriety. Okay, I get sober from these medications that I didn't even think were a problem. They totally were. And people always think that like that is the big piece. And for me it wasn't. Like the reason that we arrived to these numbing behaviors like I had arrived to, it was something was underneath that.
Yeah.
So them taking those hair extensions out of my hair for the first time in 10 years, Emily, I hadn't gone without hair extensions for even 1 hour, permanent hair
Wow.
extensions for 10 years. So it was really a part of the way that the who I felt I was. So I was probably 6 or 8 weeks into treatment and they took that last hair extension out. And I had an out of body experience
Oh my
and like
goodness.
my life flashed before my eyes. And I looked in the mirror and it was just like such a horrible low that I'd never reached before. And it
Oh,
was when they took my hair out. Like, who in the world would think that would be this groundbreaking, life altering thing? And it was a big wake up call to me. The team around me knew what they were doing in my recovery because they knew, hey, she's connected to this. We need to break her down a little bit. And boy, did they.
because it's almost like you're looking at yourself without a piece of you, and you're like,
Yes.
what's left? You know, like
Yes. That's such a great way to put it.
I about a year or two ago, I started seeing a therapist, a counselor, and I
Hmm.
never thought I would A, do that, or B, talk about it publicly.
Hmm.
Um, but she kind of challenged me like your identity is so wrapped up in your job. And
Yeah.
so like what would you be if the job was gone? And I was like, I don't even have an answer for you. Like that's I
Uh-huh.
can't imagine what life looks like. So it's I love that you're challenging people to like think about where they're just so ingrained in like this is what my identity is. This is where I find
Yes.
my worth and my value.
I get attached to talents, even like another part of the book that I talk about is, and another time they broke me down was we had this chapel service that we had every Sunday.
Hmm.
And so everybody from the facility came together. Your family could come. It was just this big thing. And I sang like a solo. I've been a singer my whole life.
Yeah.
And I sang every chapel service. It was the last thing that I was hanging on to that was a piece of who I was. And it made me feel not average and different. It made me feel like I, I was literally saying to them through my song, I know I have arrived here at this treatment center and like I am at a low in my life, but see me as special. See
Oh,
me as not average. See me as who I used to be, please.
yeah.
And the people that were helping me work through things, they took that away from me and they wouldn't let me sing
Oh
anymore.
my goodness.
And that was another like huge low. But who would look at sharing your talent with the world as a bad thing? You wouldn't. But
Right.
it's until you have an experience where that's taken away from you that you can challenge that belief because I certainly see, and I could see on the other side after a couple like silent Sundays that
Silent
I
Sundays. Yeah.
I needed um, I needed to show up simply as just the person that I was then
Mm.
in a treatment center, no hair extensions, 30 pounds heavier. I couldn't talk about any of my titles or accomplishments, and I can't even share my talent anymore. I was only the core of the person who I was, and that's when I
Wow.
did like the biggest work. But it's just a reminder that it doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can be a good thing, but it can certainly stand in your way
Yeah.
to living a full life if you cling to it or if you stand behind it.
Right. Wow.
Mhm.
This is so beautiful. And not only for grown-ups, but I feel like even for kids, like,
Yes.
just finding their identity in sports or in academics. I mean, I'm raising three that I'm attempting to not raise perfectionists in. But it runs
Isn't it
deep in the
hard?
Lay genes.
Oh, it runs deep in my genes too. And my husband though is not a perfectionist, and he's
Mine
very
either
aware.
at all.
He is like such a good dad too. He's very intentional about
Mhm.
parenting because he does a lot of the stuff while I'm working. Like he quit. He had ran a big business that he walked away from
Yeah.
to be there to help raise our family and help me in my business. And I hear him say things to Ford, who's our oldest son, whenever he doesn't do something right. He says, "Good job, Ford. It's okay not to do something right. We still love you. You're still
Oh,
great." And I'm always like, hey, this generation of parents who are so much more aware that like that
yes.
is a problem to
Yeah.
only praise the child for the accomplishment.
Right, right.
Um, but it's a wonderful thing, but it is something that you have to be cognizant about. I mean,
Mhm.
my parents never, my brothers and sisters made B's and C's in school. I made all A's. Like I
Yeah.
was valedictorian. I was, very straight. Like it wasn't because they said, if you bring a B home,
Right.
you're going to be in trouble. They didn't hold me to that expectation, but they certainly praised me for meeting those
Oh,
goals.
I love a trophy. Love a trophy, a proverbial
Oh,
trophy.
isn't the trophy
We have a
great?
pretend trophy at our house. It's a Mickey Mouse that we got on some trip, and it looks like an Oscar. And every now and then, my kids or my husband will jokingly go get it. Like if I've made a meal that I'm like, guys, do you love the meal? And they're like, yes, mom. Here's your trophy.
That
But
is
I get that, and I think
awesome.
it's so common with women, especially like you said, even as it relates to the motherhood thing. Like we get so caught up in this image and doing all the right things and saying all the right things that it really is suffocating.
It's
Yeah.
suffocating. It's
Yeah.
crippling. It is a shield to a full life in a lot
Mhm.
of instances. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
when you went to treatment and you got sober and made that enormous change in your life, that was obviously like a huge step toward
Mhm.
really
Mhm.
living fully. When it comes to your life now, many years later, and now you
Mhm.
are a wife and a mom and expecting your third, right?
I know. I'm on
Congrats.
track to be you.
Yes.
Thank
Oh,
you.
well, I went from one to three, so I don't know what it's like going from two to three, but
Oh, yes, yes, yes. You have twins. I forgot
yeah.
about that you
But
had
it's
twins.
being outnumbered it's so wild and crazy and fun. But
I've heard.
that's my
I've
advice.
heard. I've heard.
So, what kinds of things at this stage, or this season, if you will, what kinds of things did you or are you introducing into your life that made it feel more full and more rich to really like embrace this idea of living fully? What kind of things do you introduce to your life, and what would you suggest for someone who's listening to this and thinking like, I'm just getting by right now?
hmm So I'm really glad that you asked that question because I wrote this book to, yeah, the person that has the red flag. I was that person in the beginning, but for the last 8 years, I'm not that person. I'm
Yeah.
totally sober. I don't numb out. I don't have those agents anymore. And also, for the first 20 something years of my life, I was not addicted to anything. I was just living a different type of way,
Yeah.
And so I really did write the majority of this book to that person who is
Yeah.
me today. So I'm glad you asked that question. And because I know at Simplified, you guys, you boil things, you weed out the excess, you weed out the noise, and you
Mhm.
make these amazing attainable challenges and projects and these really cool things, but you like really you get rid of the noise. I love like simplicity.
Mhm.
So I wrote about a lot of things in living fully and a lot of things I bring into my life, but because I know your listeners are interested in this type of thing, there are two very specific things that I wrote about in the book
Yeah.
that reminded me of what you guys talk about. And one thing is I wrote a whole chapter on ignoring the noise. So we live in such a noisy, busy, full. Living fully does not mean full, always doing. I think a lot
Yeah.
of people might look at the cover of my book and they think, oh, living fully, she's going to talk about when you do the Miss America, when you do the TV shows, and when you build the house, when you do that is not, that was when I was empty,
Yeah.
Now it's full with less. So I believe that so many people have the answers to how they should make decisions, how they should parent, how they should live their life, the career paths and choices that they should choose. And I feel that the world around them is so noisy and people forget to channel out that noise, that they make their decisions based on a whim of some kind of noise that's come into their, whether it's something that they see or hear scrolling,
Yeah.
whether it's a voice in their head, even though they know the answer, if they would just get a little bit quiet, think about their values, their priorities, make the decision from their soul.
Mm-hmm.
They have so many noisy voices in their heads, or the noise of busyness, or the noise of saying yes to too many things because you feel guilty and you are the person we talked about on the front of the podcast. You need to be
Right.
seen as this person. That is
Yeah.
noise. So when I need to make a big life decision, I want to live fully. I want to live the biggest life I possibly can every single day. Not at the end of my life, after I retire and after I'm out of a busy season and my kids are out of the house. I want to live it now. And so when I think about living fully now, I always want to make it a point to ignore the noise, to make my decisions from a place of being able to hear my own self think,
Mm-hmm.
feel. I really, my priorities are in the forefront of my mind a lot of times. I
Yeah.
try to make decisions thinking about, sometimes when a decision comes in our life, or like a big decision or a small one, we just make it on a whim. You make a decision based on whatever noise is around you that day.
Yeah.
I really try to get and say, okay, what are the things that matter to me, my family, so don't make a decision based number one on your job. Like,
Right.
you know,
Right. Right. Yeah.
um, that is something I certainly do. Then I wrote a chapter called Ordinary Joy. And I believe that life is so full of so much vibrance and pure joy. However, I feel a lot of us let other people define what happiness should look like. So we have that image in our mind. Or you don't even take a second to think, what does happiness look and feel like to me? And if you don't make that decision, my dad taught us this when we were very young, the world will make it for you. So you're
Right.
always dissatisfied because that came from not a place of you, it came from an
Yeah.
idea that somebody else gave you. So I wrote this chapter called Ordinary Joy because simple things bring me so much joy now,
Yeah.
and peace, and fulfillment, true fulfillment.
Yeah.
And so I think on the other side of life, or if you're a person that just feels like, is this it? Like, I didn't think my life would feel like this.
Mm.
Or you think that life is available to somebody else, but it's certainly not available to me.
Yeah.
I I just always want to have you stop dead in your tracks, because that is a red flag, just like an addiction is, because I've
Mm.
had both. And it's much harder to get out of and choose living fully because you have to be the one to make the decision. And
Right.
it's very easy for people to say, I'm just going to keep opening door number one because I don't know what's behind door number two. Door number one is comfortable and easy. People choose comfort and ease. They think if everybody else around me is happy, especially mothers and wives,
Yeah.
especially people like us that are working a lot, if everybody around me is happy, this is good. This is
This
fine.
is good.
This is
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
And I just don't believe that like the absence of bad is a qualifier for a good life. I think a good
Oof,
life
that's
is
good.
rich and big and vibrant and full, and
Yes.
much, much different than just a life that is devoid, or whatever that word is, of bad.
Wow, that is so true. Living a good life. It's when it's full and the absence of things that are bad, that does not equate a full life. I love
Mhm.
you also mentioned just then about letting other people define what the good life should look like for us. So
Mhm.
like, we have these made up ideas of this is how it should be. This is what
Mhm.
my life should look like at the age of whatever. This is what my
Yes.
marriage should look like. This is what my home should look like at all hours. Like
Mhm.
we let these standards be built up from social media and friends and our parents and whomever. But like what when did we decide to let someone else write the script? Like why can't we be the
Exactly.
ones to do that, you know?
Well, also, sometimes we let other people write the script, but like I said before, sometimes we just don't take the time because we're so busy just like keeping our head above water, or just like
Yeah.
living like a frantic chicken with our head cut off,
Yeah.
that we don't take the time to make the decision ourselves. And then the
Right.
world decides it for you. And then you adapt to that. And then that is your life. My dad climbs mountains, and you know, He said, if you had told like big mountains, like Everest 3 times, I'm like,
Gracious.
he's going to be one of 450 people in the history of the world
Oh
to
my gosh.
summit the 7 highest summits on like all the continents.
Wow.
He's like a big mountain climber. And he said, if somebody would have told me before I started climbing mountains at post 60 years old, he's way too old
Yeah.
to be doing it. So if someone had told me about the cold and the friends that you will see die and
Oh my gosh.
um, the food that you'll eat and the pain that is enduring elements like that for months
Yeah.
and months at a time, and the pain of leaving your family who does not want you to go and feeling guilt about that. I would have never stepped foot on the mountain. And I didn't listen to that though, because that would be someone else defining. That is not going to make you happy. You should golf. Like you've made all this money and you've built all
Oh,
these businesses,
wow.
like retire.
Right.
And he would be, I wrote in my book, like he would be the most unhappy retiree on the golf course. He would hate that.
The most unhappy golfer there was.
He would be the most unhappy golfer.
I
He
love
would
that.
prefer to sleep in a tent next to another grown man with warmed water bottles between them so they don't freeze to death. But that is
Yeah.
his joy. Now, is that totally insane to me? Yes.
Right.
But
But it's
that is the
his joy.
difference in people's joy and
Oh,
how people experience happiness. And you need to think of, what does happiness feel like, not what does happiness look like. I think
yeah.
this past Christmas, I have a friend named Erin Lochner who writes these
Oh,
gorgeous books.
I love Aaron.
You do? I
Yes.
love Erin. Erin is like the person that I want to be in my life.
Oh,
She
man.
did all these beautiful things, and then she just devoted her life to slowing down and pulling back.
Her book's amazing.
And so amazing.
Yeah.
And she said to me one time, she was like, we all love the comeback stories and we need to hear the comeback stories. But what we really need to hear are the pullback stories. Are that,
Oh my
okay, I had
gosh.
it all and I pulled back when I had it all. Because that shows the people who don't have the things that they think are going to bring them joy and
Yeah.
happiness, that we all know when we've obtained them, they don't bring you joy and happiness, but you
Yeah.
can tell somebody that and talk to a brick wall all day until they experience that. They will not know that.
Yeah.
But hearing those pullback stories are so powerful because it's such an intentional way to show that like less is more.
You're the pullback thing. I mean, I could talk to you forever. I swear, I have like 3 more questions for you that are really short. They're rapid fire, but
Oh,
I have
you're
to tell you
fine. You can
this.
ask me 100 more questions.
This idea of a pullback story in 2017 Simplified, we had grown our wholesale program because that's what you were supposed to do. You get your online store going and then you go wholesale and you sell to all these stores.
Well, that's my
800
next step.
stores.
So I'm very interested to hear how that went.
Oh, we might need to have a phone call about this one.
Uh-huh.
We were in 800 stores. We were just
Wow.
loving life. I mean, it was great. And then it was like trade shows and flights and dealing with retailers, and I was absolutely miserable. And I remember my
Mm,
husband looking at me and saying, "We got the babies. Like we did IVF. We got our 3 kids. Your
mhm.
business is booming. What in the world? Like why are you so
Why are
overwhelmed and
you
upset?" And I said, "This isn't
uh,
what I started my business so I could be a stay-at-home mom. I didn't start it to
yeah.
be on an airplane 48 times when I had infant twins at home." And he was like, "Then shut down wholesale. We can float the business with what we're making on the website and see what happens." We closed wholesale. I thought my publisher was going to have a heart attack. They were like, "Are you
Mhm.
sure? Are you sure?"
'Cause you're making a lot of money doing that, right?
Absolutely. And we're getting book
Yeah.
placement, all that stuff. And we were able to keep our whole team. And I was so afraid to send those emails to the retailers. Every email I got back was like, "Man, I wish I could do that. I wish I could pull back."
Oh.
We doubled our business the next year. Doubled it. It was
Wow.
nuts. And it was
Wow.
terrifying, but I am
Wow.
so much happier and living more fully
Yeah.
because I had the guts to say, like, this isn't working. I don't want to live this life.
This doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
This looks good. This
Oh,
looks like
yeah.
the
My
dream.
bio read really well.
Yes, the bio is fantastic, but it didn't feel right for you. And praise the Lord, you had the strength to pull back because some people don't have the strength
Yeah.
to do that until it's too late, till their kids have graduated. And
Mm.
then you look at if you wasted that part of your life. What a shame, How are you going to look back on those years? Okay, you got all this money in your bank account, but you missed 10 years with your kids. Like,
That's terrifying to even think about.
it is. So thank goodness,
Yeah.
people have the ability to change.
For sure. Okay, I have rapid fire questions for you. I had
Okay.
3, and right before we started this, I added a 4th one. The last one's really important. Okay,
All good.
so whatever comes to your mind, you just tell me, okay? So
Okay.
who is your dream podcast guest?
Oprah or Tony Robbins.
Oof, good ones.
Those were really boring that everyone would pick, but I'm sorry. That's
But
who
they're
mine are.
legit.
I
love
love them. I cannot break this love affair that I have with Oprah and Tony.
Oh, so good. So good. Please make those happen. Okay, when you're afraid, how do you motivate yourself to move forward?
I look at that fear. Fear can run rampant in my mind and in
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people's minds, and I can make decisions based on fear, and I can choose a totally different life if I continue to choose the choice
Yeah.
out of fear, choice out of fear.
Yeah.
So when a fear is in my mind, I don't think it is realistic to think we're just going to get rid of fear. So I think that you have to organize it like the back of your shelves there, and like
Yeah.
the home edits in my whole house. I have a system for managing fear. And
Yeah.
when a fear is running rampant, I have to look at it in front of me and I say, is this a rational fear? Because sometimes fear is
Yeah.
meant to protect you.
Yeah.
Or is this irrational? If it is rational, I have to sit down, I have to think about it, weigh out my options, I have to face that. If it's irrational, put it in the back of my mind. And that's how I take the step forward. Because
I love
sometimes
that.
when you have those big fears, like if you don't assess them, you will make a
Yeah.
decision based on that fear. And it's the wrong decision. So that was
Good.
that was not rapid fire. That was
Nope, I
long
like it.
fire.
I like it. It's good. It's like the bucket system for your
Slow
fears.
fire.
It's good.
Yes.
Okay, who's been the best example to you for living a full and passionate life?
Um, my grandparents, I dedicated this book to, and
Oh,
they're still alive. They live in the middle of the compound.
wow.
And they
What a dream, by the way.
are so wonderful. I know it really was a dream. It still is a dream. I should probably move back there, but I just love Nashville so much. But they live, I think, in that whole generation. I'm sure other people listening to this will have a grandparent that they just accepted life as the way that it came to them. They didn't get stopped dead in their tracks by adversity. They
Mm-hmm.
just faced it. It's like they made a wedding vow to life. Like they just take it for richer, for poor, and for better, for worse. And for, you're sick, you're healthy. And they don't get caught up on the hands that they're served. They just take it and they live. And I think that
Yeah.
that's a big part of living fully. They were amazing examples to living fully. And then I think my dad is certainly an amazing example of that in a new generation because
Yeah.
he certainly walks the unbeaten path
I love
and
it.
he very much chooses his own joy and happiness. And he is very joyful and happy.
Ah, I love that. All right, the 4th and very important question. How in the world do I get my hands on a highfalutin sweatshirt?
You just tell the person that knows how to get their hands on that. So, okay, for the listeners, I have
Yeah,
a
you got to
merchandise
explain it.
business that just like your planners do. Okay,
Yeah.
it developed a cult following, and
Right.
we sell out of. And I think people think I have 500 sweatshirts in these sales. That's why they sell out so fast.
Right.
So we have like 20,000 sweatshirts
Oh
that
my
sell out,
gosh, that's
and
amazing.
like our Christmas sale, it's amazing, but it's because it's called Living Fully Co. And a lot of them are holiday sweatshirts and
Yeah.
fun Southern sayings. And I also do really, really high quality products and goods.
Yeah.
And even against a lot of people above me,
I understand that.
conversations with me on margins,
This is me in paper. Yeah. Yep.
I choose to do the thing that nobody knows that I do, and I choose the most expensive way to do this. But I think that's why my business has grown to what it is. So the highfalutin sweatshirt, it is like getting your hands on let's see, what what size do you want? I'm going to make sure that I can get this for you,
A medium?
even though these are really hard to get.
You're going to have
Even for
90,000
me.
DMs in your inbox tomorrow.
I'm going to find a way to get you one of these. And you need to text me your address.
I
And,
will.
we'll go from there.
I love you. You're amazing. I
You're
cannot
the
thank you
best.
enough for coming on here and sharing your story and writing this book. Do you want to tell everyone where they can find you and find the book and
Sure.
all that?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for this platform. I really love everything that you guys stand for and do over there. So I know I'm going to love all your people. So the easiest place, we live on Instagram a lot, which is just my name, Mallory Ervin, MALLORYERVIN. And then MalloryErvin.com has links to, I have a podcast and a YouTube channel and a merchandise company and a book and everything. Any way you want to consume content or
I
anything,
love
I
it.
do. So you can find all that there. Yes. And then the
That's
book's
amazing.
available now, like everywhere books are sold. Amazon, Target, Walmart, any indie bookstore, Barnes and Nobles, Books a Million. It's everywhere.
I
Everywhere.
love it.
Mhm.
You guys, I enjoyed that conversation so much. I love Mallory's heart for women, for helping others, and for really inspiring people to make actionable change in their life. It's something I am so passionate about, and I just loved talking with her about her journey and how she has really tackled some really hard things well. As we close out this episode, I'd like to say a blessing for you as we leave this time together and get back into our days. In seasons where you're just getting by, I hope you remember the fiery girl you once were. In seasons where you're burning bright, I hope you remember to reach out a hand to a sister who needs you. And above all, I hope you remember that you are wonderful and worthy just as you are right now. As always, I like to leave a little tip to help you put what we've talked about today into practice. So here's your task for this week. When you're in the middle of a just getting by season, it can be hard to see the forest for the trees and remember your why, aka the thing that gives your life purpose and meaning. If that's where you are, it might be time to take 10 minutes to remember what matters most to you. Seriously, 10 minutes. Think about the people and the work and the causes that matter most to you. Because remembering what matters lights a fire we may have forgotten we have. And it can be the torch we use to see the path forward. Thank you for listening to the Simplified podcast. I hope today's episode gave you a little inspiration to go beyond a just getting by season. You can find show notes for this episode at emilylay.com/podcast, where you can check out links and resources we mentioned here, and you can shop the Simplified brand of planners and products. And don't forget, you can pre-order my new children's book called You're Always Enough and More Than I Hoped For, right now, wherever you buy books. Before you go, I have a quick favor to ask. If you love this show, would you go to your podcast provider and leave a review? I want more people reaching for a life that's a bit more slow and sweet and good. And leaving a review helps your podcast provider get this show to more people who'll enjoy it. If you've left a review, thank you. Please know I've read your words and taken them to heart. Until next time, thank you so much for listening. Bye.